booked sessions with our speakers in the virtual lounge after this session. You've all been sent an email, so please go back and check your email, because everyone has received a new link for the meeting. In our last session today, Asia will come together with Africa and come together with the world to celebrate life. A warm welcome back to Richard Xu, who's based in Shanghai. Richard is the co-founder of the Pan-Asia Network, who will also be the moderator of this session. Richard Xu was born in Shanghai. He grew up in his teenage years in Paris and Luxembourg, and he professionally trained in New York, Japan, Southeast Asia, and China. Since 2009, Xu has been the founder and curator of TEDx Shanghai. He was also nominated as the senior ambassador of TEDx in China, responsible for bringing together the most thought-provoking movers and shakers from China and around the world. Richard, it's an honor to have you back again. I'm happy you'll be facilitating the session with us. I'd just like to introduce the panelists on this next dialogue that we will be having. I'd like to welcome Saamdu Chetri, Sirikul, welcome to you as well. Biman, thank you for joining us. Sun Lee as well, a warm welcome from Cape Town. Xinlin Song, thank you for joining us. And Joe Sirik. Over to you, Richard. Thank you.
Alan, thank you very much. Very good to meet you second time. And, is it raining in Cape Town?
No, it's beautiful and sunny. It was raining this morning. You brought out the sun.
Oh, great, fantastic. Thank you. I would just, because I really want to leave time really for our guests and our speakers. I have to thank Open Design Africa for inviting us to co-create. It wasn't difficult to, when I was asked, can you bring a few friends that represent Asia very well? And before coming onto the screen live, I was actually speaking to some of all my friends here, and we're saying all their countries are just absolutely incredible and beautiful. So now we're going to listen to the voices of the country. I think what we hear tonight is really some incredible sounds of the land, from Taiwan, from Bhutan, from Sri Lanka, from China, from the countryside of China, and from Penang or Georgetown, Malaysia, and Bangkok. I think you will hear. I think they will help you travel to their countries. So I'm going to be short. I'm going to just jump right to our first speaker. And she has been a long-time mentor of mine. I call her Sun Lao Si, that means Master Sun. And I think we will hear a couple of things from her. Number one is a number of professors and good friends of mine have said they have never heard anybody.
Richard, sorry, I'm going to interrupt you because we can't hear you so clearly. So we want to ask you just to speak a bit closer to your mic so that we can hear you, and a little bit slower. There's a bit of a time lapse with our connection. Thank you, Richard. Apologies.
Okay, I will. Let me go start again. Sun Lao Si, Master Sun, lives in Taiwan, and she will introduce a little bit herself as well. And from quite a lot of our friends in China, when we heard her speak, we realized she's really one of the great speakers of Chinese tradition, of Chinese very deep traditions and heritage. So I'm going to leave the voice to Master Sun. Please unmute yourself, and we will have a bit of a surprise from her. So now you have to unmute yourself. We still cannot hear you. You have to unmute the button. Okay.
Hello. Okay.
Yes.
There we go.
Okay, you can hear me. Wonderful. Okay. My name is Li-Tsuei, and I'm from Taiwan, living in Taipei. I'm a director and producer and performer in a modern form theater. I also practice Tai Chi Chuan and Qigong, and also teach it. My great pleasure is to practice art of Qi. So I would like to share with you about this. And first, I would like to show you the first things I would do in the morning. When I get off my bed, the first thing I'll do is pour me one bowl of hot water to drink. I'm holding it with my two hands, so I could feel the warmth of this bowl, and this temperature travels through my hands. So every finger I use to attach this bowl, I equally strengthened. So I could feel this and holding it firmly, sensitively. And then I feel I will sit up straight, and my spine will be relaxed, and I could feel my chair. And then slowly I breathe, try to cool the water down. And at the same time, the water sending the steam to my nose. So I breathe this steam in, and a little sip. I feel this warm water goes through my system, through my mouth, my tongue, my throat, my chest, and going to my stomach. And my whole body feels warm and relaxed. But this relaxation helped me to in tune with my inner chi. And it's like a ritual to me. You know, it's like I'm holding this ball and I face to it. I exchange my breath and my whole being with this ball of water, and I can see the reflection of my surroundings, of my background, and I see the light of the day all evening, and I myself is in it, and I was drinking all of it. Another sip. For this ritual, I practice every morning before I start doing any other things. It really gives me a big strength, and I take my time to drink it. And slowly, when the water becomes cooler, I feel the time passing a little bit. So I'm with my time together, and then I see, and I plan this day what I'm going to do with myself. A lot of things is waiting for me there, but I need this bowl of water. The idea of drinking hot water comes from washing up dishes. You see, the hot water can clean up the grease. So I think it would do very good for my digestive system. This is my original idea. So I just love this bowl of hot water. Okay, see, my hand is holding it, and I feel the whole world, the whole universe is in my hands, and with the energy of the warmth through this water, it's like I'm drinking a bowl of tea with elements of water to give me this. Okay, and as my hands, I will show you another part of myself, and with my feet. I hope you can see me clearly with my feet. As my hands holding the bowl with all the fingers and my feet are landing on this earth with all the toes. So equally, all my toes does their work. It's not only for the balance, they are more than that. Okay. And the movement I like to do is to put my pelvis down so I can be close to the floor, to the earth. And I slowly getting up. And I can feel my feet, my legs, my pelvis, and upper part getting very relaxed. And with breathing, while I'm going down, I exhale. Okay, and I push myself down. And when I getting up, inhalation, I stretch my legs. I take my time. So this movement is like a pumper. I pump myself down. And I pump myself with the air. That this air inside me help me to lean and to align to the earth, between earth and upwards, the void. So there was one thing solid, one thing abstract, and I could feel how my top crown was reached to the empty space, while my feet are solidly being with the earth together. And more, I can open my arms and stretch my chest and my arms and my hands, open my heart. And then I am welcoming the whole world. The world in the feminine, and holding this world, and as a big air of energy, the chi, then slowly carry this up, pump this down with exhalation, and up, slowly stretch my knees, and slowly getting down. And you can stay here, still with no movement. And for a while, just breathe in, and you will feel the whole body expand and become large, big, round, light, relax. And the whole chi comes from the earth, reach to all the fingertips and the top of my crown. Okay, you see this movement? It's very simple. Everybody can do it. And this is the movement I like to share with you. You can do it every day. And this is the bowl of water. You can use it for the first thing in the morning or any time during the day when you need to have a bowl of hot water to drink. Just sit down there and feel the time. Slowly, slowly, all the imagination, intuition, creativity will come to you. And it will come to you. You don't need to go to search for that and find it, because we are our light and the warmth remains light. With cold and ice, that's a little problem. Okay, it's different energy. And we need a time to take a break or have a rest. So every day we should have this bit of time, just a little bit, and it will carry us to go further. And the body will feel very happy. And you can tell body to do certain things. And our body will align with our inner self. So these two, our body, should be with us together, but we need to look after it. And so we can use it in the long term to do good things for ourselves and for the world and be happy. I think it's my idea. We are in the time of a pandemic, but this time has no pandemic. There's a time we can see, there's a time we can sit down, and I think doesn't matter what happens in the outside world, we should keep ourselves clear, relaxed, and always find the beautiful things to see through our physical eyes. And to start with, to drink a bowl of hot water, I think it's a good idea, and doing some simple exercise with breathing, and let us be ourselves and with the world. This is my idea. Thank you very much.
So thank you very, very much for this. I think a lot of the audience will also be able to join us at the virtual coffee, and we will hear more from you. Maybe I'd love for you to share about drinking tea and how do you balance yourself. I think for the years that we have spent together, I feel always grounded, slow down, and balance after spending time listening to you and exercising with you. We're going to our second speaker. Her name is Vivian Song. She is in China at this point. Those mountains somewhere in China, but she's in Shanghai, right? Vivian has a very deep curiosity and wide research around rural, countryside, and farmland. And she's really an incredible go-between architects, urban planners, farmers, villagers, and teachers. And I can't wait to hear you put your ideas and thinking to our 7 minutes. Vivian, the microphone is yours.
Thank you, Richard. Will you please play my slides?
Yes, I will. Are you able to see this?
It's coming up. And I wish I could see the audience, to every one of you, to see your face and to know where you're from and to share stories from our hometowns. My name is Biman Song, Xinlin, and I am really glad to be here and to share with you some of my countryside stories, some of my research and observations and into Chinese countryside in the past few years. I'm a researcher, a producer, storyteller, community facilitator. And as Richard says, I have lived my past 10 years. If you could put on to the next slide. This is fine, Richard. Beautiful. Thank you. And as Richard said, I'm an expert in go-between. So I've basically lived my past 10 years between cultures and stories and narratives. And my job was to find a way to bridge the understanding and then also to find a common ground to facilitate dialogues. And next slide, please. And 2 years ago, I've received an invitation to work on a global initiative on the future of the countryside, led by the architects and an urban thinker, Ran Koolhaas, and his AMO, urban think tank. And the research later on turned into a show opened at the Guggenheim Museum, New York, earlier this year. And the show is still on, and if you have a time to visit. The show basically look at the 98% of the world coverage, that including the farmland, including the human settlement, and also the wild nature as the whole, as Mr. Koolhaas put it, the countryside. So in this show, it's not only about the farmlands and villages, but also about nature and larger ecosystems. And next slide. And we have a section for China. And my job was to go to the villages, collect the stories, and learn about their innovations, and to see what are the emerging trends and that we can bring to the audience, to the world, to exchange. And really interestingly, we also have an African sections in the show, which is right next to us, which is really nice, very beautiful. And I think they're working with university in Kenya, Nairobi, I believe. For my show, for this research, really took me to all these villages in China for the past 2 years. I've talked to innovators, I've talked to farmers, I've talked to scientists, I've talked to people basically making a living while reshaping the realities of the countryside. And this is what I found. Next. Next, please. So basically, until 1979, that's opening up policies in China, 80% of the Chinese populations are still living in the countryside. And until then, the countryside has always been where a lot of changes have been happening, innovations have been happening. And if you go to the next page, and these are the posters that we chose to present at the show, but these are the real posters that selected between 1950s to 1970s. And these are the envisions of the future countryside for people back in the 50s. And as I said, countryside is where the innovation is happening, the land change is happening. And if you go to the next slide, it is also where education is happening. And also where young people are growing up, young people learning about how to farm and then how to live in harmony with nature and then how to live with your community. Next. And of course, that's where fashion and lifestyle, and this is our new fashion and lifestyle are also being discussed and being tested out in the countryside. And next, please. So basically, according to, I'm sure you probably familiar with this number, according to UN, by 2050, there will be a projection of 80% of the world population will be living in the cities, which leave only 20% left in the countryside. And if you go to next slide, and then I do have a question, and it is also part of the challenge that our show was putting up to the world is, will this happen? So along with my research, I have discovered a small emerging trend that might not be going according to this UN data. Next. If you are a fan for YouTube, probably you've noticed this girl. Her name is Li-Tsuei, and she has been so popular over the internet for the past, I believe, 2 years. And she was one of the examples, an urban young people that studies in the city, but moved back into the home village and starting to make videos and starting to live traditional lifestyle, craftsmanship, and then also among other young people like this, they really ignite a trend for this new generations to be associated with the countryside and be curious about their own culture and back to land. Next. And in fact, in the past few years, China's been investing a lot in the digital infrastructure alongside with all the physical infrastructure as well. But the infrastructure has allowed people to have a new opportunity to work as an online entrepreneur or digital entrepreneur. So platform like Taobao and Jingdong and Pinduoduo, and you are now able to sell your harvest directly to your customers in the cities. Next. And also, as a lot of young people are moving into the city, which left a lot of villages empty, with a lot of empty houses. And an older generation are leaving us, where new generation no longer wanting to come back to the village. And then it created this leftover villages where architects and designers are now actively turning these empty houses into hotels, into learning centers, schools, and other possibilities. And this is an example. For 3 years' time, this village was one of the village in the poverty alleviation list for China, which means this is one of the extreme poverty village in 2017. And after 3 years renovating and working in 2020, I just visited it last week. It's now becoming a very popular hotel, a bookshop, and the former villagers are now becoming the shareholders of this new projects. Next. And this is, next please. And next, thank you. And then also technology companies are actively participating in this back to land trend as well. And the tech, above. And the new tools are now empowering young people to go back to the countryside and to actively become a farmers that operating, for example, operating drones, operating other digital or smart farming tools. And then agriculture and farming is becoming cool again. And next. And then also countryside. If you remember the previous picture, that's where young people are learning back in the 50s and 60s, learning about farming. But now countryside is again becoming the classroom, but not only farming, but also nature's and ecologies at large. And this is an example where a scientist is teaching the local kids and how to recognize seeds. And this is happening right next to my background in this village. And then also indigenous wisdom, it's very important. China is the largest country with indigenous culture, and we still have so many minority groups, indigenous wisdoms, and then nature and traditional ecological knowledge. And that's where the young people from the cities and everywhere are coming to study. Next. although this is it seems like a smaller trend compared to a bigger urbanization narratives or usual stories that you will hear about Chinese people going to America, going to Europe to study. But it is happening. It is very vibrantly happening that the more people are attracted to the land and then attracted to its traditional cultures and now wanting to come back and to make a living, especially after being burned out in the big cities and a little bit of lost in purpose. And last but not least, I'm really curious to see whether this trend is happening in Africa. And if you have some thought, and we can discuss in the virtual cafe. See you later. Thank you.
Vivian, thank you very much. I think I'm kind of enjoying our way of traveling from inner self to the countryside. And I think we will discuss furthermore of this in our virtual coffee in about an hour's time. Our next speaker is Biman. Biman come to us from Sri Lanka. We call Biman Bibu sometimes. And he now lives in Beijing, but because of the COVID situation, he's back to his home country in Sri Lanka. One of the great things about what we see, the travel of great creative people and innovators is that moving back and forth between their home and to new places, they're bringing ideas back and forth to both. What I appreciate the most, we'll hear from Biman, his journey from Sri Lanka to China, but also very important, how he is bringing technology to the mass, to the larger public. And he's thinking about really servicing the mass rather than just the top part of the population. Biman, leave it to you, the microphone. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much. You can see my screen, I assume. Awesome.
Yes, very well.
So, I'm so happy to be part of this conversation. And my name is Biman Najika Liyanage. I'm actually originally from Sri Lanka, living in China for the past 14 years. So the topic I want to talk to you guys about is around a concept, which is 10x over 10%. And it's extremely important for us to understand where I come from, what I do, to just put the story together. So I have been working in advanced technology for the past 10 years, over 10 years, delivering over 800 plus projects, have filed over 25 plus patents in different type of areas in wearable technology, smart cities, AI, effective computing, and won Red Dot Design Award, and we've been part of very incredible journey. And the question is that where does this all come from is a point of curiosity. So when I first left Sri Lanka, I remember that when I was even a little child, I wanted to dream bigger, better, and bolder. And one of the most interesting things that I was accessing to was my curiosity, because we were going through civil war my whole childhood. So 33 years of war. So I was in Colombo going to school, and then we had suicide bombs, attacks, so many things, negativity that was going on, and quite a lot of challenging times. And it did not stop me from thinking about astronomy, thinking about innovation. And then when I wanted to dream bigger and bolder, one of the things that I decided was to go to China, because everything that we actually see in this world, kind of in my days, were made in China. So I went there to just study my undergrad in satellite engineering. And then from that till an interesting story happened. I invented my first pair of gloves that actually helps deaf and blind children to communicate like normal people. So I did this at a low resource setting, built the whole product out of my dorm room, and I was able to win the first prize of over 20,000 students in China, and then got myself a scholarship, and we called it Touch of Hope for kids who don't have any sight or hearing ability, where touch was their only hope. And this actually led me to Microsoft and my career in technology, and I've been working in 3D printing clothing, for sensors to wearables to extremely different range of topics. So I wanted to give you guys an idea where these things come from. So I'm a huge fan of moonshot thinking, which is a framework by Google that came out saying that when you really look at bigger problems And we were extremely fascinated in 1960s to go to moon, and we've actually stopped ourselves thinking that bigger. So you have a huge problem, you have a radical solution, and you have a breakthrough technology. Putting these three things together, you can actually go for a 10x type of difference than a 10% advance increment. So everyone is like fighting with each other for like having a market size. And this market size is like, you know, if every single company is differentiated by each other with only 10%, how can we come up with like a method that we can just do extremely different type of products? So the idea is, how can you localize moonshot thing for your organization, but solve a problem with intention? So what I want to talk to you guys very clearly is that when one of the famous sayings from Peter Thiel said that we wanted flying cars in 2020, but instead of that, we got 140 characters. So the whole for me came from this interesting point where that I bumped into Dr. Arthur Clarke. He was residing in Sri Lanka, and said that any sufficiently advanced technology is indistinguishable from magic. And this concept loved out for me for creating things like in front of you like this, so that you can see that we can judge the numbers that's appearing on the dice with a high accuracy. But for a person who's looking from outside, they think it's actually like magic, but it's actually like, you know, discovering the science behind it. So magic is not limited for us, but the key thing is that if you want to solve big problems, you need to actually disconnect with the problem, with the solution, and connect with the problem. So, and solving huge problems require like magic, and then you need to be conscious engineers in order for like coming up with a solution that works for everyone, and then optimize the loop plan. I'll just go quickly with a couple of the four products that I've been able to work on recently, and tell that like the learnings that we found. So if you have an idea X, what is next that we are building is an idea that this is one of the products that I made, a pollution mask that actually helps, because in the time that I was making this in 2017, China was actually battling a huge problem of air pollution. We were able to build the products in 6 months, and launched over 50,000 units, raising more than like $1.5 million on Kickstarter. Going from an idea to mass production in 6 months was the speed and agility that we were getting in the land of like impossible in China. So reducing your loop length, testing your ideas out, building your experiments. We need to understand like developing countries like us, like Sri Lanka, like other countries, like how can many iterations that you can afford. So going from your working prototypes to big projects, and building products with intention is extremely important, so that you're like giving something for the users and you're making sure that they're actually extremely protected by this equipment, but at the same time to have that speed and agility to how to do so. So other thing is that if you have an idea X, putting two things together, this is 3D printed food. So you can see this is one of the world's first 3D printed cakes. We were building all these things out of lab in Beijing, that experimenting with how can we introduce tools for the kitchen, and how can we get different subject experts like using design engineering, creating communications in two worlds that don't talk to each other usually. So the other stuff we were looking at in terms of, this is one of my recent projects that's going on. So when COVID came out, we wanted to figure out the amount of pollution that is actually getting back into our oceans because of plastics, etc. And we wanted to create how can we define and make a mask that is 100% biodegradable. So we use ocean plastics and come up with this new sensor, which is made out of the whole mask is 100% biodegradable. At the same time, we have an advanced nanotechnology sensor that is made out of Sri Lanka in COVID. So we were able to take the knowledge that we have in China, localize it in Sri Lanka, and then come up with a very advanced sensor to understand the lifetime of a product, so that when people are throwing it away, we know that the 100% lifetime is being used, and people know how to throw it out very responsibly. We are taking graphite from the lands, and we are extracting graphene, and we are building the sensors in Sri Lanka that matches with one of my famous ideas, that do what you can with what you have at where you are. And we've been able to take this to the world right now. And the other thing is that everything goes back to the mind. And this is my AI company working on understanding human emotions from voice. When the rest of the world was talking about big data, we were working on small data. That we published a paper that how can we recognize more emotions with less data using AI. So when people are saying that you need to have so much data to be able to produce algorithms, we were looking exactly the opposite. Can we figure out to do another way and like create a breakthrough. And we have actually been able to get the highest accuracy in the world for human emotion recognition through this technology purely by voice. Now working on understanding mental health and related stuff. So the key thing I want to tell you guys today is how to become zebras instead of unicorns. Do not go for unsustainable growth. Do not create companies that are like unsustainable and they're consuming everything, and you come to a point that you don't know why you started the company to begin with. Be zebras, go to sustainable growth, and make sure that like, you know, you're consciously, holistically building products that are actually giving back to the world, and you care about the birth and the death of the product. Thank you so much.
Love it. Very good.
Biman, wonderful. Amazing that you're able to put all this in 7.5 minutes. I think there'll be a lot more conversation in the virtual coffee. I think a lot of people have a lot of questions for you. We're going to go straight to Saamdu. Professor Saamdu, we're going to give you the mic. And Professor Saamdu is from Bhutan. We met in Bhutan 10, 11 years ago. And Saamdu is now in India teaching happiness. Saamdu, we leave it to you, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, Richard. Good evening, everyone. I'm happy to be a part of this great initiation. Well, happiness, you know, at the end of the day, the ultimate goal of every human being is to be happy. If you can put my slide on, please. And happiness is not something that we measure in Bhutan, but we measure conditions to happiness. So the GNH journey that we're going to take very soon, a short journey rather, because if I start talking about GNH, it's a semester. Can you go to next slide? Just running through Bhutan, just to see what Bhutan looks like. This is at 3,200 meters above sea level. You can still see forest line up to 4,000 meters. Beyond that, you see shrubs, and beyond that is alpine. So Bhutan starts at 220 meters and crosses over 7,300 meters, having one of the greatest biodiversity in the world. Can you go to next slide? This is a lower valley at 1,400 meters above sea level. We don't destroy our nature, we live with nature. So this is one of the examples. Next, please. This is the capital office. We call the Zom, the fort. And you can see the agricultural land around it. So we try to preserve land as much as possible because Bhutan is also small, and we want to live with nature because we have realized that two very important factors for us to be happy is nature and your culture. Next, please. This is northern part of the airport, the international airport, Bhutan's international airport. You can see the greenery. It's a beautiful land altogether. Next, please. So coming to the fact that happiness is nothing new. You know, it's as old as all the human beings. But in Bhutan, in 1629, the founder and the person who actually brought Bhutan as one land gave a legal code saying that if government can't create peace and happiness for its people, there's no need for the government to exist. Down the line, all the kings tried to live with this principle of trying to bring happiness to the people. And in 1972, our former king very profoundly gave a statement that gross national happiness is more important than gross national product or gross domestic product. A talk that can take us a whole day. But the fact that Bhutan does not go for gross domestic product, although we do measure our economic growth through that, but GNH is the prime measure for the growth in the country. In 2008, Bhutan became a democratic country. The king actually gave democracy to the people, despite the fact people didn't want it. He forced it into the people. And in the constitution, it's enshrined that GNH shall be always a measure to help all the people in the country. So it was enshrined saying that GNH conditions will be provided for people. And in 2009, the present king signified GNH very profoundly by saying it's GNH is development with values. And he connected values with equality, humanity, and kindness. Very profound. And we can go to the next slide. And then, of course, GNH, the concept became so very wide because of the UNDP in the office. We got money to, please don't play now. We got money to actually work on a concept, to measure a concept that we have been living for the 40 years. So in 2011, the former Prime Minister, the first democratically elected Prime Minister, Jimmy White-Tinley, actually gave a talk on GNH to the United Nations General Assembly. And in the assembly, of course, 68 countries immediately co-sponsored. So the following year, in June and November, 2 resolutions were taken by the United Nations. The first resolution was that 20 March every year will be the International Day of Happiness, and happiness will be an approach towards a holistic development. So this was a standalone goal that was taken as a resolution by the UN. And after that, of course, it took wings to the world. And today, you know that we have different measures around the world. Like EU does the better life measures, England does it well-being and mindfulness. Likewise, throughout the globe, they have taken different things about, but everyone is on the inspiration of happiness, how to bring happiness within the system through a development perspective. We can hear Jigme Tinley speak about gross national happiness in a video of less than 3 minutes.
GNH, or gross national happiness, is the philosophy that guided Bhutan's development process for about now 40 years. It is based on the belief that development must serve a purpose. The development's role is not simply to promote continuous and limitless economic growth, which is what GDP or the conventional economic models tend to do. And again, within a finite environment, within a finite world, there are bounds within which growth can take place. Natural, social, resources, and so forth. And so GNH is based on the belief that development must be human-centered, and that its objective must be to create those conditions that will enable the human individual to achieve what is most important to him. And that happens to be happiness. And then again, happiness, we believe, is a condition that can be attained when one is able to balance the needs of the body with those of the mind, the physical and the mental needs being balanced. And likewise, the balance between the spiritual needs of the human individual and the material needs. And so it is a human-centered, holistic, sustainable, and inclusive development approach. Now more and more people who are dissatisfied with the result of pursuing an economic development that is no longer seen to be sustainable, they are seeing GNH as an alternative development paradigm.
Thank you. Can we go to the next slide, please? So, the GDP, actually, the belief that the economic growth is measured, which is true, of course, it does measure the economic growth. But when you come to per capita, then of course we are having a huge divide. And what generally those things that show economic growth necessarily may not be befitting into happiness and well-being, because it has a direct implication on society and ecology. And therefore, it brings a lot of divides. Divide with self, self with others, self with environment, self with the government, you know. So self with self, this divide is done through basically the greed, the attachment that we carry. So we tend to live in the past or in the future, but not at the present moment. And we are separated from our own self, and we fall into stress, worry, and all kinds of depression and problems like that. So that's a divide. This is due to the attachment, and that's propelled by the difference by GDP. If you go deeply inside, this is also the reason why there's a growing gap in South Africa, for example, between the rich and the poor. Okay, and GNH is the other way around. It tries to bridge the gap between the rich and the poor. Divide self with others. If you see the global trend prior pandemics, we realize that 20% of the global population actually takes away 77% of the global production. The same other number of people, 20% of other people, take away just 2% of the global production, and they are still alive. So what does this mean? There's a huge waste. There is no distribution pattern to bring this. And the environment, the divide with the environment is that we actually consume prior pandemics, I don't know now, we consume, according to World Bank, something like 1.7 times the biocapacity of our planet. What does this mean? Actually, we did a little research in 2013 to see that the present land, 20% of the arable land, which are mainly destroyed due to, due to Monsanto seeds, genetically modified GMO seeds. Actually, that land is good enough to produce enough food to feed 21 billion people even today. And the rest of 80% of the land is used mainly for cattle, for the meat and dairy industry, in fact. And both of these, dairy and meat industry, are actually the disease to bring us sufferings like diabetes, cancerous, and many other heart diseases and many other. So there is a big divide between us and the environment. Standing trees have no value. The moment we chop them, make them into timber and furniture, their value rises and they contribute to GDP. Example, if we do have two working parents and one decides to stay home to really take care of the children, it has no value to GDP. The time that we're spending right now here has no value to GDP. So what is GDP actually? Is actually a dividing force between people and us. Anyway, the final thing is divide with the governance, because we don't trust them anymore. Even if we do, it is for our own self-orientation, desires. It's not really the community. So there's no transparency, there's no accountability. The rule that's actually a country has is defeated oftentimes, and people within don't have trust. And all this is basically, if you go back into the economic development, we find this problem coming up again and again. So the premise on which GNH sits is the 5 premises. We say that GNH must be holistic, looking into spiritual, material, physical, and social needs of a person. And this needs to be balanced through the 9 domains of GNH, which are psychological well-being, time use, cultural resilience, community vitality, living standard, health, education, ecological connections, and good governance. This needs to be balanced. And if a person has 50% plus conditions of these 9 domains, we rate that person to be happy. So it is conditions that we measure, not happiness. If a person is below the 50% of these conditions of the 9 domains, then the person is rated as unhappy. Anyway, we don't see happiness as an individual phenomena. We try to take it as a collective phenomena. So it's all encompassing rather than individual. And we say what is enough for us today must as well be enough for generations after us. So that is sustainability for us. And that's how GNH looks into an equitable meaning bringing wellness and happiness equally across everybody, so that there's no gap between the rich and the poor as measured by the Gini coefficient. As the gap increases, we find that countries lesser happier as opposed to Nordic countries in Scandinavian countries. They're much more happier because the gap between the rich and the poor is smaller. And if you look in America, one of the richest countries, actually they are less happier than some of the countries like Costa Rica, Bhutan, and others. Although Bhutan in the World Happiness Report in 2019 is rated as 97th out of 156 countries, but there's a lot of reasons beyond this and behind this. Anyway, finally, let me come to the last slide before I end. What do we use GNH for? We use GNH for all our plans. It actually helps us to strategize our plans, and mainly we do our 5-year development plans with it. We also review our plans, because what you make, the same thing is required to actually, I know all of you are doing consultancy somewhere or the other, so we also use this to measure our growth, to measure our development in the 9 domains, and we also use this for screening a tool for the government's policy, because policy has to be GNH friendly, and as well programs that come to us. For example, Bhutan did not join WTO because of this screening tool. We found out that Bhutan would be, kind of diminished. So we also now start using this screening tool for businesses, so that business are aligned with the GNH concepts in sustainability, in holistic, in balance, and equitable in the system. With this, I end my presentation, the last slide, but I would like to wish you Tashidele, which means that let the auspicious come to all of you. May you all be well and happy. May you find happiness in what you do. May you bring happiness to people that you touch, and may you be the light for your own self, your community, your people around. If there is little time, may I sing this happiness song for everyone. It just takes a minute or so. So this is a song that I sing to everybody wherever I go to the conference. Happiness is here and now. I have dropped my worries. Nowhere to go, nothing to do, and I'm not in a hurry. Happiness is here and now. I have dropped my worries. Somewhere to go, something to do, but I'm not in a hurry. And this song is for our mind, not for our body. Thank you, and Tashidele.
Wow, Professor Saamdu, that was a surprise. You didn't even tell me about this. Thank you. You did definitely go over your time, but absolutely worth it. I'm not going to let anybody put us out, shorten this talk. Thank you, Professor. Kunui has been one of my longest friends here. We know each other since early 1990s, and I've learned a great deal from you. We have learned a lot from each other, and I think you're going to follow the word enough. We look forward to hearing from you. Thank you, Kunui. The microphone is yours.
Hello, Richard. If I can find a way to share the slide.
Yeah, you just click on share screen.
No.
I will be happy to present for you.
Yeah, can you do that? Because right now, I don't know why my screen becomes small.
Okay, I will make sure.
Oh, Richard, we have the presentation, so we're also happy to play the presentation, if that will help.
Yes, please do.
Okay,
Go ahead.
great.
All right.
Thank you. Please go ahead.
Anyone tell me how can I get the
Bigger?
Yeah.
Just give us a
Okay.
second.
All right. Can I try to do the slide by myself?
No, you
Okay.
can't. She can? Oh, you can move the slide yourself.
Okay.
No.
All right.
Okay, sorry. So you have to tell us when to go to the next slide.
Can I open the slide right now so I can just do it right now?
So no, we have to move the slides for you. Just 1 second.
Okay.
Could you just simply say next slide? Say next slide. Okay.
Okay. Let me introduce myself. My name is Nui from Bangkok, Thailand. I'm working as a branding and sustainability consultant. I have more than 20 years working for the corporate branding. Start from like country branding, conglomerate to the SME. Okay. Before I get into my presentation, let me share with you what your country inspired me. This is the inspiration I get from South Africa. If you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. And I think the concept of togetherness or inclusiveness is very important for sustainability right now. That's why I start my presentation with this something that very touched my heart. Based on my experience, I believe that there are only 2 segments in the world. If you can move to my slide. All right. The first segment is the one who don't have enough. What they have is not enough. The other segment is the segment of those who never enough. Okay. Can you click the slide? All right. And I believe that the gap between these 2 segments creates so many social issues. Okay, next slide. So I think what we should try to do is we have to make sure that if we can close the gap, click the slide. If you can close the gap between those who don't have enough and those who never ever enough, and we can make sure that everyone should have enough. Next slide. I think this is what everyone in this conference, it doesn't matter who you are, we should try to make sure that every single life in our community should have enough to survive, should have enough to sustain. I didn't say they should have anything equal, but they should have enough, okay? That is why I initiate one project called POLOD. Next slide, okay? The objective of POLOD, before I go further, POLOD is a Thai word, but in English it means enough is good. Word by word, enough is good. The objective of the POLOD project is we want to teach young entrepreneurs to become responsible business, to be able to conduct business with compassion. We want to teach them about one key term, moderation. And we want them to use moderation as a mindset to develop both business growth and social growth. From the picture, you can see in the next slide that even the before, during, after COVID, those POLOD entrepreneurs, they always conduct business with others. So we have some of the Polodi gang went up to the north of Thailand and try to do the community development, working with the current Hill tribe people. Have a meeting with them. In the next slide, you can see that they teach them, the village people, how to do the good coffee. And some of the Polodi, they are the designer. So in the next slide, you can see that he even teach the girl in the village turn from the local craft into the sustainable fashion. And it's not only the knowledge sharing. We also offer marketing support to all of this village. In the next slide, you will see another Polodi. She's quite small. Her name is Som. Okay, she owned a hostel in Bangkok, and during the COVID, she aware that everyone is suffering, so she opened a new business called the Yard Grocery. So it's like a big mobile motorcycle, and brought the produce everywhere around Thailand and sell to the people in Bangkok. Okay, all of these things you might consider is a very small activity, but I can say to you that it shows that small is beautiful, small is sustainable, and it's what the Polodi people has been doing in the Thai business. And if you ask me why moderation, in the next slide you can see that actually moderation is a principle of the Buddhism. It doesn't mean sit in the middle and have nowhere to go. Moderation implies something not too much, not too little, something just about right. It's the art of balancing. It's the art of balancing between our own greed and other people's need. Okay, so I believe that moderation is a wisdom of mankind, because in order to get to the moderation, you have to take a lot of thinking to get to it. And how we can get to the moderation? Thanks to our king, okay? Our king, the late king in the next slide, King Bhumibol Adulyadej. He was our king for 70 years. He spent most of his time outside of the palace, visiting people in the village, and try to do what we call sustainability today. He's had been doing that for the whole of his life. He's the one who come up with the philosophy that called sufficiency economy philosophy. I don't have time to go into the detail of this philosophy, but the heart of this philosophy lie under the concept of moderation. Okay, we can talk in detail in the coffee session, but I just want to share to you that the concept of moderation is very powerful. And actually, if you're talking about sufficiency, next. Okay, there's something that the king always teach us. He said that if one is moderate in one design, one will have less crafting. And if one has less crafting, one will take less advantage of others. That's how business should do right now. Forget about being number one. Business right now has to be inclusive. We should leave no one behind, take everyone along with us in the journey of the market. Okay, next. So actually, if you ask me why it's a sufficiency economy, sufficiency is mean to meet the need. So it's very important that we understand this concept. And you may see that anything that beyond need could be the greed. So right now, in order to get into the sustainability, in order to be able to share, one has to control ourselves, has to control our greed. Okay. So in my final saying, if you're talking about the polity, okay, next slide. Even though I say that polity in English is enough, I have to emphasize to you that enough doesn't mean stop. Okay, the overall principle of the enough is good or polity is when you don't have enough, add to. When you have enough, stop. When you have more than enough, share. This is something that very important right now. I use this practice to one of my clients. I use sufficiency economy to build sufficiency branding, so it can lead to the mindful marketing. And I believe that if we can make sure that our young entrepreneurs have this mindset, they can become a global citizen. And in the next slide, it can ensure to you that if you believe in the power of young generation, you believe in the power of moderation. No one walk too fast, no one walk too slow, but we all walking in the moderate passing. We will get there together. And I think that's something, that's some of the wisdom from Thailand that I want to share with you. I want you to believe in yourself, believe in being small, and ensure that small is beautiful. Small can create change better and faster. Thank you.
For that.
Great, thank you.
Can I make an announcement?
Yes, please.
Oh, you can hear me, Richard. I just wanted to say to our audience that, I mean, we're enjoying these sessions. There's so much wisdom that is being shared. So we are going on to our virtual coffee sessions, but we're going to be 10 minutes late and we will start that at 5 to 5. Over to you, Richard.
Great, thank you. For some reason, I'm not able to see my other guests. Do we know why?
Joe Sidek?
Yes.
Yes, he's online. Joe, you can go ahead and
Yes.
announce him and
I'm online.
Great. For some reason, I'm not able to see you guys. That's make it difficult for me to have a conversation with you. Maybe that's going to be the way. I'm not able to see anybody.
I see you, Richard. I see you and I see everyone.
Okay, I'm the only one that has that problem. But Joe, I know you very well. So we will start this conversation. By the way, Kunyi, very much for your presentation. I think all of us want to continue talking about. I think so many pieces of our conversation so far really ties themselves very, very well with each other. Joe, I have promised you that you can have the presentation by yourself. It will be you'll be a conversation dialogue between the two of us. You are such a dear brother to me for a very long time. Joe, tell me a little bit, because just tell the audience how did you end up working for so long and such good work in Penang? Because I know that you were in Kuala Lumpur for many years. Tell us about your return to Penang, to Georgetown.
Penang is a little island. You see it at the back of me. It's on the Straits of Malacca. I've been back in Penang for a long time, Richard, and I love the island. And what everyone else spoke touched me a lot. And I would like to share a little bit about my work and how I've gone from what I think big to small and internalized, So maybe we can have, Richard, I'd like to put on the slide first, and then we talk after the two slides, yeah?
Okay, I believe our friends in Cape Town are going to play the slides.
Yeah, my background is I started doing a festival in 2010 because Penang in 2008 got the UNESCO listing. First slide, just the first slide, please. Penang is a little island that got UNESCO listed for historic ports of Straits of Malacca. So then the government wanted to celebrate, and what better way to celebrate our unique, outstanding universal values of culture, tradition, heritage, architecture, religion on this little island. So I spent 9 years working on this, and like most other festivals, you go for wanting to be international. So you push very hard to be international. What I didn't realize was I stopped looking local. So that's why I love what the other speakers spoke. So next slide, please. Yeah, then I did another festival. This is in Sarawak, which is indigenous territory of Malaysia. Unlike the other First Nations of the world, Sarawak has got, I think, 34 indigenous groups that are not marginalized. They are politicians, beauty queens, rocket scientists. But with the two festivals, what I liked about working on them was the narrative, storytelling, and placemaking. I want to play the video now to share, and after that I want to talk about my failed report card. After the festivals, I realized I failed. Maybe we play the video so they have understanding of the festival. Richard, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Yeah. So Richard, now we talk. I failed. That was 9 years of working on a festival where I wanted to be international. I wanted to have all the big shows. I wanted all the big acts. But then after that, I took the next 2 years to reflect and did my own report card. And I started looking internal myself. What was the reason I did the festival? What good did come out of it? Who benefited? So now we talk, Richard. This is where I failed, and I'm looking forward to my next few years working on other projects.
But Joe, I cannot imagine anybody who did not benefit from what you have done, from the government side, from the population side, globally. I mean, you have put Penang far more on the map than anybody else single-handedly have. I know you had a great team. And, you know, I think you're saying that we brought a group of great Asian friends together. You have brought the world to Penang, and you have shown Penang to many, many people. Your annual event on the month of August, some years you have gone for 200 events in one single month. That's, I mean, you can compare this to any arts festival. So I really want to hear from you. Why do you think it may have failed the local people or the government?
No, it didn't fail the government. They got really good returns. They got really good PR media value. I failed on my own personal rationale of chasing that international thing. I forgot localism, and there is a disconnect because my people are not ready for this international appreciation of culture. So it will take baby steps, and it will take maybe smaller, compact, and a rethinking about a narrative of a festival. I question myself, why do I not put an Asian narrative to my festival? Why do all Asian festivals have a Western psyche? This is what I want to share with Africa, right? We don't need to have, I'm not against the Western psyche. I want to be inclusive, but we have our own stories, we have our own narratives. Asia has got over 2,000 years of culture, and yet we put Western goalposts in our festivals. We reach for Western goals, not our Asian goals. So that's where I thought I was not successful. That's for one. Two is I forgot to look what's around me. In the last 6 months, I found really, really very interesting narratives that I can bring global eyeballs to. That's what I mean by failing. You know, I wasn't balanced. I think you mentioned about Kunoi, you mentioned about balance. I wasn't balanced enough. That's what I felt.
Yeah, Joe, if I remember, you have maybe the proportion was little, but you have a lot of local Malaysian, Singapore, Southeast Asian voices. Anyway, I'm not going to convince you. I think you have done great photography shows. You have done great, amazing theater shows, and I think you went directly opposite, and you went to the roots. You did the Rainforest Festival to kind of balance yourself a little bit.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, that was a really good balance. But my next phase of my personal journey is even more balanced about the rationale being what good does it do? A lot of community projects, that community that need help, that maybe I didn't see that clearly, you know, whether it's the creative community or the non-creative community. It's the community, you know. So I'm really excited. I'm not negative. I'm not beating myself that I failed. I really am excited because I see a clearer picture. I see better balance. And with hearing everybody talk tonight, my God, I know how to wake up in the morning with hot water now and start my day with embracing the world. I know how to aim from like moonstruck thinking. I mean, like, seriously, this is brilliant. Thank you, everyone. You know, I'm so clear where I'm going to go from tomorrow onwards.
Yeah, and you know, my conversation with the organizer of Open Design Africa from the beginning was, I think so much of our narrative, of our story, of our pride is actually quite even. I see us very aligned with many countries in Africa. I see us aligned with South America, with Southeast Asia. If I have the chance, we have so many friends from Indonesia, from Bali, from India, from Laos that we could also invite. But I think there's one word for me that has always been important since my return to Asia and really working between countries. Is the concept of national pride, of the pride of our country in us. And you know, Joe, I think I know Malaysia very well, considering the years I've lived there. And what's really beautiful with the people of so many people in Malaysia, it's very happy to be there. because the concept of being humanistic is very, very strong in Malaysia. You know, we have people, we have living legends like Ramli. Ramli says, I don't need to leave my country. I just want to dance in my country for my people. You know, and as when we hear this kind of words, this kind of stuff, but sometimes it is interesting that we do need a little bit of the international validation, the international people that say, you guys are doing something pretty fantastic.
Yeah, well, I think, it's nice, the validation and people saying that you're giving you a bit of a benchmark. But I think it's like, what, United Nations Sustainable Goals 17, is it? To have international collaboration, partnerships and all that. I think it's important to exchange, because I feel guilty that I don't know Africa. I'm so happy to be here because I want to connect. Asia is so similar to Africa. We have the numbers, we have so much things alike, and yet we're different, every little country. So Asia alone is like about 4 billion people, and Africa is 1.2 or something. And I think it's important for us to have our own national and then sort of like Asia or African identity as a collective. Like, I believe in that we are all boats sailing, and what was the Kunui again? It's we sail together as an armada of ships. We'll make a complete picture of the jigsaw pieces. We're all just pieces of jigsaw. If you put every picture together, it'll make a beautiful picture. You alone, you don't make a beautiful picture. So I love that what you said, Kunui. I think it's really, really interesting. I've always felt that too, that we're pieces of jigsaw or boats in an armada. We need to be in a collective. We need to work as a collective.
Great, beautiful. Joe, are you able to stay with us in the coffee session?
I would like to, actually. I really enjoyed listening to everyone. I would really like to.
Okay. And we were going to have a lot of African friends joining us, so, and global friends, so it'd be great to hear. It's very funny, Kunui, because you are from Thailand, and the elephant is your national pet animal. That's why we use the African proverb and the visual of the elephants and the little elephants walking. And Joe is in an island of Penang, so he talks about boats. He wants to go around the island. Okay, everybody, and thank you very much. This has been incredible.
Yeah.
I want to spend hours and hours with you guys. Let's go to the virtual coffee. I have not done it yet, so it'll be my first virtual coffee, ODA. I think there is, for the people that are watching this, there's a link to go. And I think for our speakers, we know what the links are. It is in the chat. Saamdu, are you okay? Kunui? Joe?
Yeah. Yes.
For a while.
Okay, great. And
I'll close here.
Vivian and Sun Laosi, you have the link to go to the coffee. Okay.
All right, great.
And, good. So see you maybe in 5 minutes in the coffee shop.
Yes.
Sure.
So
You know what? Before we go, can we please, everybody and Li-Tsuei, if you can open your camera, can we please have one photo of the group? Li-Tsuei, if you're not going to come on, I'm going to Photoshop you in. Okay, everybody, thank you so much. I'm going to take a few photos. Smile. Thank you. See you at the coffee shop.
Thank you.
thank you so much, Richard. I just want to say what an incredible session. Today has been all about inspiration, our Global Inspiration Day. We've had so many speakers from all over the world. I've been fired up most of the day, and it was just beautiful how you brought us back, how you calmed us, how you calmed me, how we learned. And it's incredible to actually to realize that despite all of, the desolation and the destitution and this pandemic and how separated we are, how close we actually are, and that it's important that we reflect, we go back to our core and we celebrate those strengths. So I really just want to thank all of you for sharing that, your very incredible journeys and amazing work that you're doing. I'm not going to keep you longer because I know the folk are lined up to pick your brains and and to be inspired by your work. So thank you very much, Richard, for moderating, and to all of the speakers. It's been an incredible honor. So I hope that all of you enjoyed this. Tomorrow we'll be back at 9 o'clock for Open Design Africa's third day. We've been inspired. We've said we've had to rise. Tomorrow we focus on being future ready. So what does that mean? What are the skills? We're going to be working with our hearts, with our mind. Again, for those of you who have joined up, we're about to, please go to the provided Zoom link that you see in the chat, and that was emailed to you. Sorry, not the one that was emailed to you, but the one that has been put up in the chat. I'd like to thank you all for all the following that I've seen on social media, all of the texts, everything you've shared with us. Remember to tag us as Open Design Africa and to use our official hashtags. That's hashtag ODA2020, hashtag Open Design Africa, hashtag small is incredibly massive. We'll see you tomorrow. Thank you to our sponsors, the V&A Waterfront. Thank you to the Department of Sports, Culture and Arts. Thank you to Smile FM in association, I'm not looking at the right camera, Smile FM. And thank you to Decor for You for the beautiful, beautiful furniture and the beautiful decor that we have. Now let's all enjoy and welcome the last performance of today by Dylan Farrad from Cape Town. Have a good evening,
Thank you, Ellen.
people. Thank you.
We all have to say, Ellen, thank you very much.
Please stay.
Thank you.
And see you in the coffee shop.